Hello, my dear beloved children. Today I want to tell you what the soul of a person suffers from the most when it descends into the world of the third dimension. As you already know, each soul, being between incarnations, works out in advance the scenario of its new descent to Earth, and also carefully chooses its parents. But finding herself in a physical body, and even in a dense world, which is vibrationally so different from her native subtle plane, she experiences severe stress. In addition, it needs time to synchronize with its physical medium. This happens gradually, and depending on the age of the soul, the person in whom it has incarnated either almost immediately loses contact with it, and therefore the memory of everything that preceded its descent into the physical world, or still retains it for some time. And since a large number of mature souls, possessed by the so-called crystal children, are now descending to Earth, they remember their near-Earth experience for quite a long time, sometimes up to 6 or 7 years. But over time, their memory also becomes dull, for which there are several reasons. The main one is that they feel uncomfortable among ordinary people, who, moreover, perceive their stories about the subtle plane as fantasies, with ridicule and distrust. In addition, the three-dimensional matrix, in which they find themselves, begins to gradually shift their consciousness into the material three-dimensional plane, as a result of which their vibrations fall, and thus they lose connection with their soul, which is at a higher level of vibrations. And as soon as this happens, hard times come for the soul of a person, which is now unable to control its physical carriers so that it does not deviate from the path it has intended. In this way, a person loses connection with his soul. This is a very painful period for her, since now she is forced to remain only an outside observer of what is happening with her ward. It is like a young man who, having felt freedom, sets out on a free voyage, completely freed from the care of adults. But in the case of the soul, this happens much earlier, when the child loses connection with it and begins to live according to the laws of the three-dimensional world and is completely dependent on his earthly parents. And although she chose them herself, while on the subtle plane, she could not foresee how much the desired could diverge from reality in the world of the third dimension. Fortunately, many crystal children are now being born to indigo parents who came to Earth with the first wave of ascension candidates, so they are careful about the fantasies of their little ones and try to do everything possible to ensure that their adaptation to the three-dimensional world is as smooth and painless as possible. But there are some brave souls among the ancient and pure souls who chose parents who were far from spirituality in order to go through the most difficult path on Earth, thereby acquiring invaluable experience of their evolution in the most difficult and unfavorable conditions for this. That's where we'll stop today. The Father Absolute, who loves you immeasurably, spoke to you.